All right, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I've been wanting to do something for a very long time, and I finally got a good opportunity to do that tonight. I've got a good friend in the room here with me that she's a female, and I've for a long time had a desire to bring a woman's perspective and a voice in, and just try to add something great to this channel and to give like an alternative perspective. Because of course, a lot of things that I talk about is strictly it's what comes out of my brain, it's what comes out of my head, and I'm not right about everything in the world. I'm still learning a lot, and I loved having the opportunity, which it doesn't always come to pass like this, where I get to sit down with a cool person that I respect and has a lot of good information to share. So I'm hoping that you guys will get something out of this. But with that said, I'm sitting here right now with my good friend Katie, who I've known for a lot of years now, and we've grown to be pretty good friends, and she's got a lot of cool perspectives. So I'm just gonna start a conversation with her. We're just gonna talk about whatever comes up, but a lot of the things that I've been curious about, I'm sure a lot of you guys out there is curious about as well, is like a female perspective, on the other side of a lot of the things that I talk about. So maybe she will agree with some of the stuff that I say. Maybe she will have some very contradictory opinions about it. That's totally fine. Like it's all learning for all of us. But thank you for joining us, Katie. I appreciate having you here. So the first thing that I wanted to ask you about, Katie, is we started talking a moment ago before we turned the microphone on here, but I wanted to bring the conversation back to where we're at. I had done a talk sometime, a month or two ago, where I was just kind of outlining what I saw when we're talking about this cold approach stuff. There's a male perspective traditionally, and there's kind of like a female side and perspective to that story. And in my eyes, I was just kind of, let's say in a way guessing, but like my assumption was that when you as a male, when you do that sort of cold approach stuff that I'm talking about, the daylight hours, normal, average, everyday sorts of approach, like that is you as a male exercising like your abilities to be selective in a sense, right? You're walking around, you're scanning your environment, you're paying attention to what's going on around you, and some woman catches your eye that you're attracted to. You've made a selection in a sense. You walk over, you do your thing, you hopefully make some magic happen, and you do this well. That's part of what's in it for you. But the thing that fascinated me about the female psychology on the other side of the table is, and this is the part where I was making an assumption maybe, was that I feel like most females, like there is this element where they like the fact that they've been selected. It's like there's something special about them that made you want to walk across the room, that attracted you to such a great extent that it made you like walk over there and do what you do. So it's like, in my opinion, like I would just assume that would make any woman feel very good about herself, like being on that end of this little story of a cold approach type of thing. And so I guess I'm just asking you that question, Katie, like right off the bat, like is that a valid assumption that I'm making here? Is that what you're thinking in that sort of moment when this thing happens to you? What can you tell us?
Yeah.
How you feel about that?
So I guess what we were kind of talking about and how I feel is it's different when there's like a group versus like a single person. But in a group dynamic, there's usually like a girl, like let's say it's like 5 girls. There's usually one girl that probably appeals to most guys, and she's used to being like the one that most people are interested in. And then the group, and it's probably similar with guys too, and then the group kind of like forms around that. Like they're used to like that girl getting hit on or approached first.
Sure.
And then down the line or whatever. But there are times when like a guy might be interested in a different girl in the group or whatever. But so that girl might, like when she's approached, like it might not be as meaningful to her because she's used to it. Like she's used to her going out with her girlfriends, and she's the one.
So you're kind of outlining like a scenario, like a social setting, maybe like, I mean, are you kind of envisioning like a bar sort of setting, or like an outside, or I guess like a social event maybe, or something like that?
Yeah, an event.
There's a pre-prescribed group of people who are hanging out. Okay.
Yeah. And so from what I've heard talking to guys, like in my past, so it's like, okay, you were the girl that like I number one wanted to talk to. Yeah. And if you weren't interested, then I was going to go like down the line kind of thing.
Wow. Okay.
But there's also like the girl who's used to getting hit on or approach or whatever that goes out alone, and then when a guy does it, it's not as meaningful because it always happens. So, but then there's the other way of like, now sometimes like you'll go out and there's the one girl who's used to being like number one, but then maybe a guy is more interested in like her friend.
Yeah.
And then she's kind of like annoyed by that because she's so used to being like the first pick. And even if that guy strategically was talking to her friend to get to her, she, no matter what the guy says, if like you were the girl that I was into, but I was afraid to talk to you or whatever, you're still always gonna, like, that's how I felt a couple of months ago.
Sure.
You're still always gonna be like, well, I thought you were more into my friend, so I feel second.
I see what you're saying. I want to pick this apart a little more, but I want to take a moment to highlight something here that you're talking about that's extremely relevant. Women, when they're out in these group sorts of circles, as I perceive it, it can be very competitive. Women are kind of like in this like dog eat dog almost sort of environment, right? That's very it is unhealthy, and it certainly clouds a situation where, like, kind of, if I'm understanding you correctly, like, you might be in a situation where some guy like innocently like wants to talk to you, but because the jealous friend is around them, they kind of do this like you know, cock blocking like sort of thing, for lack of a better term. This guy's like, as a sidebar, I've talked to you guys about this so many times. Like, you've heard it straight from the woman's mouth. Okay, when you do the cold approach in the normal everyday, daily hour sorts of setting, she's in Target, she's in the grocery store, she's wherever. She's not in that circle of girls to have that sort of thing manifest and happen. And guys, I've given you like 1,000 reasons right now. Here's one more, like I said, to drive it home, to reiterate it. It's like, you don't have to fight that fight. And from Katie's perspective, it's like, it's healthier for the woman too, in a sense, because like she doesn't have the influence of all of what's going on in the environment of that bar scene, the club scene, like the typical social places where people are meeting. So like, I love that you talked about that. I love that you pulled that out, and that's like, that validates like my beliefs and like what I'm trying to tell you guys. So hopefully that all makes sense. But going back to what we started to talk about, so you were describing that situation, and we kind of got talking to like a little bit different piece of the puzzle there. But so you were talking about that group setting, the social situation, the way it made you feel. But let me like back it out from there. Like, take yourself like out of the bar. Like, just imagine like you doing your normal everyday stuff. Like, you're in Costco, you're in Target, wherever you're at, you're by yourself. Like, can I just ask you like directly, like, how would that make you feel if some guy just comes out of nowhere and like opens you up, or tries to like open a conversation, like in the right way, like in an innocent way? Like,
well, first off, like, I think that you're 100% accurate when you talk about like it never happens.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
It doesn't.
Yeah. See that, guys? Did you hear that?
It doesn't matter like how attractive you are, or like what you're putting out there, whatever. Like you could go to the bar and like you still don't get approached today, which is sad.
Right.
But I also feel like it's kind of tough because I'm a kind person and a people pleaser, and so like if someone comes up to me, I'm always gonna be kind and nice. But if I am just like, I don't want to talk to you, like my body language or something about it will be obvious, I think, unless you're not good at reading people, which I think is a good skill to have in general.
Right. Do you feel like most guys struggle with that though? Or?
I don't think most guys do. I think people understand people, hopefully, but I don't know.
I'm going to take a note real quick. Keep talking though, because I want to circle back to that. I want to remember what we're talking about.
But I also think like if someone approached, at a coffee shop, like that would mean way more. And it doesn't matter that I'm not with my friends, but it's just like it's more meaningful than at a bar where you're you go to a bar to meet people.
Yeah. So it's more like special in a way because like
Yeah.
it sounds like what you're describing is like this is something that rarely happens to women in this present day. What are we? It's December 11th, 2022. Like this is not the norm, right? Like
Yeah.
these sorts of things that are going on in your life. So yeah, like, and that's always been like, I want to believe that makes a woman feel like a different sort of way from the very onset when you first meet somebody. That's like, I hope that makes you feel special, and I hope that is like on a different level. And it sounds like this is basically what you're saying. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, like, it's a whole different ball game when you're versus the club, versus the bar, versus that sort of environment when you meet somebody,
Yeah.
right?
Or it could be a Tuesday and you're at the bar, like a restaurant bar.
Yeah.
During the day and you approach someone, even that is more meaningful. Like, it just means like you weren't there to meet a woman. Like, you didn't go out with your bros to like meet women, and you're not trying to look for a one night stand.
Right.
You just happened to be there, like I was too, and you were like, oh, this girl intrigues me, and so I want to talk to her.
Right. Because girls are so hyper tuned. This always fascinates me, and this should be like common knowledge. But for us as guys, like most of our lives, like we're oblivious and stupid to this fact. Like girls can tell when like the wolf pack is like out on the hunt, like at the bar. It's insane. Like being a little bit older now, like I can look back and like appreciate that and see it. But you know, it's like, yeah, girls know this stuff. They have this like incredible sense. Like, I don't even say incredible. It's like kind of common sense, like at a certain point. But like young males, like, that escapes them, and it's, I don't know, it's just like a detriment to you guys, like getting what you're after, probably like meeting somebody new and getting somewhere with them, whatever that looks like for you. So it's,
yeah, I mean, if you're looking for like a young 20s, like, I think you'll be fine, because that's the time in your life that you're supposed to go out to bars and meet women and like go home with them and whatever. But when you're of a certain age where you've had enough life experience, and you're looking for something serious, you're looking for a serious relationship, like, girls are going to see through it.
Sure.
They're not, they want to get, like, they should get what they want to get to. Like, it should be both ways. But if I met a guy and we went home that night, that's how I'm going to think of him, you know? And I'm going to be like, we could go on a date, but I also know that's how it is.
It's off on the wrong foot, maybe. It kind of casts things, like, it casts an opinion that's going to be hard for you to break, maybe, of that person.
Because I'm like, oh, you just do this, and I was the lucky one that maybe got a first date, but then are you going to go out with your friends and do this again? Right. It's like, but vice versa, probably, too.
There's a really funny thing here. This is a great point. This is like something that's occurred to me. It is funny. In anything that you do in your dating life, I feel like the better you get at it, it's almost comical to me, where women, I think on these terms, and it's kind of entertaining to me, but in a way, it's like something that needs to be dealt with and combated in a way. But like, I'll give you the example, just what I'm driving at here. Like, because I've done a fair deal of cold approaches in my life, and because I've done it enough. I've kind of worked out like my little style. I'm able to most of the time like accomplish like what I'm after. Like I can like, but when you get so good at it, it's so funny. I've had some women tell me, they're like, "Do you do this all the time or whatever?"
I
they like
100% see that.
It's kind of funny, but it's like it always entertains me because I'm like, what more do women want? Like this is like I'm doing like, in my opinion, like one of the best things.
They want it to be unique and different in a situation that you never experienced before, and you just saw this girl and like, I have to talk to her.
Right.
But how do they know that you've done it before unless you tell them?
Here's what I gather, because so many guys don't know how to do this stuff, because so many guys do it in the wrong way, because so many guys approach with the wrong energy, because so many guys are like leading with this like pervert energy, or like leading with this like awkward, weird stalker energy, like all that kind of shit. When some guy actually comes up that acts like semi-pseudo in their eyes, like normal, let's say, quote unquote, whatever that means to the woman, they're like, it's so foreign to them. They're like, what's the catch here?
Yeah, are you trying to sell me a new religion or something? Yeah,
I've actually, it's funny you say that. I had a girl a couple years ago. She said just that to me. And I was making like very innocent, like small talk with her. And I can't remember like how I opened her up was I I was walking downtown in our little town where we live out by this like commercial shopping area, and she was carrying a bag like out of the local department store or whatever it was, and I walked up to her and I was like, "Hey, what'd you buy me?" and she just like jumped in and started rolling with it. I caught her off guard, but she like looked at me and she's
great.
like, "Oh, I bought you like," and she, I don't know, she pulled out some
She went
ridiculous
with
thing.
it?
She pulled out like some thong or something. No, she didn't pull it out of the bag, but she's just like, "Oh, I bought you like a thong or something like that." I was like, well, "That was weird," but she didn't know what to say.
A banana hammock?
Exactly, something like that. But it was like this really funny like initial moment. But like, so, you know, I do what I always like tell you guys to do. Like, just you translate right out of there and just like a normal like sort of conversation. Hey, you know, haha, like how's your day going? Like, what are you, you know, what are you up to? What are you doing? Whatever. And so yeah, at the end of that though, like just to circle back to what you mentioned ago, she's like, it got to the point in the conversation where she's like, wait a second, like what are you trying to sell me here? Like what do you?
Yeah.
And I was like, really? Am I giving off that kind of vibe? But it was just, that's what she thought. And I was like, what was going through her brain? So I thought that was interesting, but.
Well, that's when you tell the white lie and you're just like, I just thought you're just like a very attractive person and I like just had to talk to you. And you don't say that like, oh, no guy has talked to girls in person, so that's my thing. Like, this is your time to do a white lie and just say, it was you.
Right.
I just had to talk to you.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell him that that's your thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's like, I think that's the way I pivoted like out of that moment. And I just kind of was like, I knew that was like my cue to like do something, like, you know, make a close to that moment. I asked her to like grab a cup of coffee or, you know, beer or something like that. Later on, we exchanged numbers and that was it. But anyways, yeah, that was a funny moment. And you just...
what happened to that girl?
Oh, this was like years ago. It didn't go anywhere. It was like, I think we dated.
That's
like
funny.
We went out once or twice and there was just nothing there. But just, it was a good cold approach story and it was like a quote unquote win. But it just, like I said, it kind of proves that point that it's just this weird dichotomy. Like when you get better at this stuff, it's like, it's so foreign to women that they're just like I said, they're like, what's the catch here? Like, is this guy like an actor? Is this guy like whatever? But it's like, no, I was just like a general, like, I'm the same guy I am today that I've always been, but it's like, you just, I don't know. It's an interesting thing, man. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I think there's like a difference between a girl who's by herself because women in general have to be very like, careful when they're by themselves. Like, it doesn't matter if it's daylight or dark, and so you're up against like their feelings of safety.
Oh yeah,
and so you have to be like cognizant of that.
Right.
And then if they're in a group, it's hard too because there's always the number one, and then there's the girls after, and I think like a lot of guys like back strategy is like, I'm going to talk to the number two in hopes that, like, when I'm not going to be shut down.
Interesting.
And so my ego won't be hurt. And then also maybe I can get to the number one because she's going to be pissed if I'm talking to the number two. And...
See, this just, like, blows my mind, like, what you're saying. Because this is, like, such a deep level of, like, your perception of the strategy in the game that's, like, being played is, like, so much deeper. And I got to give you the male perspective on this side, like, I really don't think like most guys are like trying to game it like that hard or even thinking that hard or that far ahead. So it's just like interesting. And I'm not saying this doesn't happen. You might be right.
Well, it was a strategy that I have brothers and guy friends. I definitely have heard the strategy of like talk to the less attractive or the one that you're least interested in to get to the other one because she's going to be mad that you're...
See, okay. And that's something that like...
It's toxic.
It is, and I'm just gonna like jump in and give you guys like my opinion on something like that. Like I think you guys know what I'm gonna say. Like no, like if you go for the girl you want to talk to, like none of this freaking beat around the bush bullshit. Like you go straight into the one that you like, the one that you got your eye on. Like don't try to do this little, like your brother and his friends. Like did this game ever work? Like did it pan out for them? I mean, like
yeah, I think so. And like I've dated guys who literally told me like, I had my eye on you, but if you weren't available or interested, I was going to go for this friend. And that's like a really weird thing to hear too. Yeah. And then I've had friends who, I mean, I am just aware of all this.
Yeah.
I've also had friends where like they've talked to the friends, and I thought, oh, maybe he's into her.
Yeah.
And I've been like, oh, that's great. And then they're like, no, I was into you. But that is terrible because, like you said, you should go for the girl that you want.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you're putting a huge, you're getting them in a fight, which is never going to end up well for you.
Right.
Because they're going to be competing against a guy.
Yeah.
And they're just going to probably, hopefully drop you unless they're like not,
Well, and this is like, I want to like move on from like this, portion or, this part of the conversation, because like, I think this highlights like this very big overall picture that I mentioned a few moments ago. And like, hopefully for those of you that are still listening, like all this back and forth bullshit that me and Katie have been talking about for the last like 10 minutes now, like our little talk here, it's like, this is all the crap that you got to deal with, guys, when you're trying to do this, like the bar scene pickups and all this kind of stuff. It's like, wouldn't it be amazing if you could just like be outside of that whole realm of bullshit and like those games and like just do what I'm saying, like the normal daylight, everyday sorts of hour settings. When she's alone, you're alone, you're in a public place, you're not drunk, the sun's shining. It's like a normal, average, everyday sort of setting. It's so different. So that's just like the last thing I wanted to say there.
Yeah.
I wanted to pivot off that. I wrote down something that you mentioned a moment ago that I really want to pick your brain about. I'm still curious about all this, but I want to preface this by telling you a little bit about, like, I know you haven't listened to like a lot of the content on the channel, but I talk a lot about cold approach in general. And like my basic strategy that I try to get guys to do is like, the way you do a good cold approach is like, of course you got to find like a way to break the ice. Get proximate to the person, like start talking somehow. But the second and like the biggest, most integral, most important step that I'm always like telling guys to pay attention to and to do, okay? It's like, don't worry about getting her number. Don't worry about like the next week when you're hoping to take her on a date. Like, don't worry about the future. Like right now, at this very second, like feel her energy. Feel the woman's energy. Mm-hmm. Is it good energy? Is it bad energy? Is it like awkward? Is it like flowing? Is it clicking? Do you have that electric chemical sort of thing going on between you? And it's either there or it's not. This is one of the biggest things that I think like most guys kind of struggle with. I did like for a long time where I just like, I was like 10 steps ahead of the conversation. I wasn't even listening to the words that were coming out of her mouth. And I wasn't even paying attention to like body language and like her signs that it had this good energy. So that's a lot of words to get to the question that I wanted to ask you directly here, Katie, is like, can you tell guys just like straight from your opinion, like what does it look like when a woman is like giving a guy good energy back? Like she actually likes that he's there. She wants to keep talking to him. Like, what are the things that you feel like you do or you would display to convey that sort of message to a guy?
Yeah, I think this is a tough question because even myself, who I would consider like pretty, like I talk to strangers all the time.
Yeah.
I would consider myself like a extrovert. But I'm going to be thrown off when a guy that if a guy approaches me that I think is attractive,
yeah, I'm
going to be thrown off. And so I'm going to be a little bit shy. And so what I would say is like, probably her which the guys might not know this, but her voice is probably me a little bit more higher pitched because I think that happens when you're like not comfortable.
Yeah, when you're excited by something, maybe the octave of your voice, like physiologically.
When you're like shy, I think your voice gets higher pitched. Both men and women, actually.
Maybe even a little quieter too. Would you say like you just don't project as like loudly as you might normally project? You think?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's okay to just give it time for her to just like rest a little and let her heart rate like settle down a little bit and like, and so give it a little bit of time. And then I think like body language, like if her body is like towards you, is a big sign that she's interested, even if she isn't making like complete sentences or whatever, because she's just totally thrown off. But then there's girls that are just going to be way obvious. But I think, like, if she's standing there with her body language towards you and not, like, against you, then you probably could shoot your shot.
Right. Yeah.
Worst case scenario, she says no. She'll probably say, I have a boyfriend. I don't live here. I'm, just
Right.
whatever easy way out.
Right. Yeah, like she's actually going to look for an exit to the moment. Maybe I've noticed, I've witnessed this. I've had this happen to me plenty of times. Like
Yeah.
where, yeah, I've always looked at it like there's somebody that's like trying to hang in the conversation with you, and there's other people that are like clearly trying to like get out of the conversation. You just said it a moment ago. She brings up her, oh, I have a boyfriend, or oh, I've got a busy day and I got to get going, or whatever. Like, that's obvious. But
I just also like want to say that like a lot of women aren't used to it. You know, they're not ever used to being approached in general, so they might be shy, they might be very uncomfortable, but they still might be interested.
Yeah.
Or they're like processing it in their head that like this stranger, and their first thing they're probably thinking about is like stranger danger, like is this person safe? Can I talk to this person? And those are like flight or what is it?
Fight or flight responses, maybe.
That are like instinctual, like you don't even have to think about it, but it still happens first.
Well, let me ask you this, because I think this is a very relevant point as well. And like in my eyes, it's one more plus for the cold approach stuff. Like the safety thing is such a big thing for females. Of course, like you have to not feel threatened by this man's presence. And there's a lot of like creepy things that guys do that like freak girls out. Like
definitely,
even without them opening their mouths, like
all the time.
So it's like, I mean, there's a couple things I want to ask you about here. Like the first thing that came to mind is like, I mean, would you say that you like generally feel pretty safe if it's like daylight hours, you're in the middle of a Target, right? Like
no,
you don't feel safe like that. Okay, interesting.
No, like first thing, if a guy's talking to me in the middle of Target, I have to like go through a process of like, is this person safe? Do I feel comfortable?
Yeah.
Even if a salesperson at Target comes and wants to chat about something, like I go through that instinct. I think it's instinctual of like a process. So you're processing that, and then you're like, okay, this person wants to talk to me. Like, what does he want? Because it is rare. Like, it doesn't happen. So you have to think about that. But then you're also trying to, if you're interested, engage in a conversation. So there's a lot going on. So you might not have the, like, answers that cool girl did about, like, the thong. Like, some of my friends would probably be great at that. Me, and I consider myself an extrovert, like, I don't know if I could be that, like, cheeky to answer that, but I think it's so cool.
Well, and that I think was like, I caught her off guard. She didn't know what to say. It was like what I got out of that. It was like a clever thing on her part, but she was so surprised. But circling back, the second thing that I wanted to ask you about that business was like, could you give us an idea of like, if a guy was to approach with this sort of like bad, threatening energy, like what sorts of things, what would that look like to you? What would a guy be doing that would like freak you out? Like, what sort of behavior would that look like?
Well, I guess if you see a girl and you want to like check her out a bit more, you might like follow her or do like stare at her and some of those things. Like girls are like always aware of their surroundings. And so even if you have good intentions, it might come off bad if you take the time to like look her up and down and go aisle to aisle and whatever.
You know, I did a talk a few days ago or a week or two ago, and the topic of the discussion was don't linger. And that was like kind of my message, what I found, because I've made the mistake plenty of times where I took way too long to like size up the situation. I was like too close without saying anything for too long. It got awkward. And some of the times I just, you know, I honestly like tuck-tailed and went away because I knew it was like kind of a ruined moment. But the other times I was like, fuck it, I'm going to go in and whatever. It never panned out well because you kind of like set the tone, like subconsciously almost, like just that energy of somebody who's like lingering and kind of like the shark that's kind of like swirling around the prey, like waiting. It's ominous and it's bad. And that was like the talk that I was talking about, guys, and like the advice is like, you kind of have to get used to just like, you got to make a quick assessment. You just got to go in and do it if you're going to do it. You got to make a move like,
you don't have to know if you're into her. Just like talk to her and then decide while you're talking if you're interested. But your approach of like, hey, did you go to, you know, San Diego State? Like that's genius because while she's answering that, you can decide if you want to. And even after you like get her number, like whatever, you can you're not married to her instantly. So you don't have to look at her body and like follow her around to like decide to gear up the like energy.
Yeah.
Like do that on your own.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. And I like to that note, this hasn't happened a lot, but there's been a few isolated incidents where like I did all this stuff like I'm saying, like I saw a girl from afar, I didn't linger, I knew I had to just like go and do it, and you get in there and you start talking to her like, ooh, she's not as hot as I thought she was,
Yeah.
or the words that are coming out of her mouth are just like really off-putting or like whatever it was. So like yeah, that stuff happens like from the guy's perspective, and it's interesting when it goes down that way. But you're absolutely right, Katie. It's like, and this is something also that's like, you know, you guys get like so inside of your head and so ahead of yourselves. Like it's just a small moment. It's just a small conversation. It's like you're not marrying her the next day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you don't even know like if the first date would even conceivably go well. So like take that pressure off yourself and like don't try to like think too forward into the situation. Just like you're just sizing up like a new person or a new option or a new like whatever. Like it's a very like
it's a lead, and like you don't even
Yeah.
have to contact her if you don't want to.
Yeah, but I think like all of us as guys, like, and I'll admit to like this is I've been through all this stuff where it's like yeah, you just like hype yourself up in your mind so much, and you're like, then you come back down to earth at some second. You're like, wait a second, like I don't even know this chick. Like, is she even like? Does she even have morals? Is she even like the same caliber of person? Does she even like the same things I like? She's all sorts of stuff, of course, that you'll find out like later on down the line. But so circling back to the original question, so you identified like the don't lingering. You identified what was the other? I think you told me something first about like the thing that would freak you out or like creep you out kind of thing. Was there something else you mentioned before that?
I don't think so. Just lingering and
Yeah,
aggressiveness.
aggressiveness.
Yeah.
In what sense? Like, what does that look like to you?
I guess if you don't consider you're a person that has a high emotional intelligence, like
Yeah.
you can't read people well,
Yeah.
I would come up with a plan. Because if you don't read her reaction, shyness is okay, but if she's like totally off, like then you need to like exit, like leave her alone.
Interesting. Yeah. That's one I've had that experience where like you can like the conversation is just not flowing at all, and it's like there's times when you got to make like a gracious exit. It's kind of awkward, but it's like better to pull out. This is like an interesting thing you made me think of also too. Another big message that I've had for guys and I've talked about many times is like if you want your success rate to go up, you only make offers on the situations where the energy is good. And this is like why that feeling her energy is like such a big key piece. So like you only ask for the number if you're getting that good read out of her, if you're getting good energy.
Yeah.
And those times where you're not getting good energy, it's like I'm of the mindset like, no, don't throw the Hail Mary up. Don't throw it out there. It's like she's giving you bad energy. Just like leave it at that. Like you tried to open it up, it didn't go that well. Like rather than put the loss on your tally board, in my eyes, I'm like, don't even make an offer. Just politely excuse yourself. Hey, have a nice day. It was nice chatting with you. Whatever. But like, you don't have to make an offer, guys. Like, don't feel like you have to like throw it out there just because you did the approach. Like, it's a 3-step process. It's like make the approach. Like I said, number 2 biggest thing, feel the energy.
Yeah.
And that dictates what comes after that, right?
Yeah.
That dictates if you ask for the number or not.
Yeah.
Right?
And then after, like,
Yeah.
that's a big thing too. Let's say you get the number.
Okay.
Then, like, the after part, I think is a big deal too.
Now, okay, this is something that I have a quote unquote, I don't even want to call it a strategy, just what I do.
What do you do?
But I want to ask you, because this is relevant, and I might not have it right. I might be doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Coming out of that moment and that sort of experience, like how would you like to see a guy like come, contact you or whatever? Like what does it look like after that to you? Like what's the most ideal thing in your mind?
Yeah, so I mean, every girl's different. And technology has made, the like Amazon factor, like people want to be instantly connected, but in my opinion, I don't like to be, so let's say some guy gets my number and he's like, I'll text you or whatever.
Yeah.
Usually, a guy will text me right away. And then it'll be like message,
like same day,
message.
hours
like
later?
10 minutes after.
10 minutes, okay. All right.
I don't like that.
Good.
I don't like I mean, we don't like games, but
Yeah.
that's what works. So I would prefer a guy wait an hour or two
Okay.
and just say like, "Hey, it was really nice meeting you. Um, let's figure out how we can like get together soon.
Right.
Let me contact you tomorrow."
Yeah.
Like, be the initiator and give her like a date. Like, make her feel like make her wanted a little bit. Like, get a like, okay, this guy just got my number that was brand new. Give her a couple hours. Let her like
Yeah. Process the
process
moment.
it.
Yeah.
And then text her. Don't make the whole plan because that's like a lot. But like, give her like, tomorrow I'll reach out to you and whatever. Whether you're into calling or texting.
Yeah.
And then you give her the date and then you're like, okay, I'll call you tomorrow. You call her tomorrow. And then you make a plan.
Yeah.
And then you make the plan because
Right.
you were the
Of course.
initiator. Like, you say,
Yeah.
let's go have a drink here at this time or what day are free or whatever.
This is another reason why I really like cold approach, because I feel like it takes the ambiguity out of the initial first getting to know somebody. I feel like when you connect online, sometimes it's the woman reaching out first, sometimes it's the guy reaching out 1st. There's this kind of awkward messaging back and forth. I think theoretically it's accepted. Like, I think most people would agree it's still kind of the guy's job to like do his thing. But like, I love in the sense when we're talking about cold approach, it's like, it's very clearly, guys, that like you were the one that decided to like walk up to this chick and interrupt her day and like do something. It's damn well up to you to like set up a date. Like, she's not gonna like, you know, she's not gonna be the one that's like, or she shouldn't have to be. I don't think. Like, you're supposed to be continuing this like, in my opinion, male masculine like courtship sort of energy throughout the whole like initial stage of that situation. It's just how I look at it.
Yeah, if she wanted that and she liked it, then yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think this shouldn't be surprising to anybody, but like, it should go without saying. But it's a good point, and it's like I said, I just like how in the cold approach example, it's like clearly defined. It's like, obviously, yes, you should be asking her out if you did the cold approach, got her number, asked all that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it's on you, right?
But too soon, like, I've experienced the guy who texts that like 10 minutes after because he's
Minutes later.
excited.
Yes.
And like, it wasn't enough to get my number. He needs to like make sure that it's still like secured.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, what's wrong with this guy? One, he did something that like most people don't do, and now he's just like on me, and it's just too much.
Yeah.
It's too much. So like, give it a little bit of time to process.
Yeah. The other one,
marinate and whatever.
this is a great point, and I wanted to bring up something and ask you once again about, like, let's zoom back a few moments to like when you first met. Okay, when it comes to the point in time to like exchange the number, this is a very funny matter of semantics, right? Now where I'm at, I pull my phone out and I enter her number. That's it. If she gives me the right number, like, great. If she gave me a wrong number, like, that's fine. Like, that could be like her way to exit. But
Don't
like,
double check her work.
don't double check her work. Like, some people will like call the number like right there, and I think it's awkward.
It's very awkward.
I've done it. I've had people do it to me, and I'm like, I don't like that.
It
like,
seems like you're not a secure person.
Yes. So you're agreeing with what I'm saying.
100%.
So guys, like, remember what Katie's saying here. Like, just either like
If
you
I
take
like
the
you,
number,
I give you my right number.
that, or like the other one I've had too is I've had girls say like, why don't you give me your number? And I take that as like, hey, you want to be in the driver's seat? Like, maybe you don't want to give me your number for some reason. I'm like, fine, here's my number. But like, guys, you have to approach it like, if she calls, she calls. If she texts, she texts. If she doesn't, then fuck it. Like, you can't, like, you just have to accept that that's like an element of this style of approach, or whatever you want to call it. And it's like, I just wanted to, like, because Katie was starting to talk about like the first initial, like right after you got the number, but I'm even like, I want you guys to think a little bit even upstream of that. Like, even in that moment where you're getting the number, there are some things that need to be considered, I think, to be cordial, to be polite, to be like non-threatening to the woman, most importantly, right? Guys, you just did all this work. You broke the ice. You had a good conversation.
Yeah.
She's giving you her number. Like, don't fuck it up at the very last minute by doing something like that, right?
Also, if she gives you the wrong number, she's not like a high value person, and you don't want to initiate with her anyways.
Well, maybe it's not that she's not high value. Maybe she's not feeling you. And I've come across this. A lot of women don't know how to like say no to you in the moment, because some guys are crazy and they'll flip out. And I totally get that. I
don't think that's right. If you're
okay.
high value and you respect yourself, you should be able to tell a guy, hey, I really appreciated that you came and talked to me. Be honest.
I respect that.
And if someone gives you the wrong number, like, that's fucked up. And you don't want to talk to them anyways, you know?
Interesting.
And then if someone is like, I'll take your number, fine. I mean, I would put that in your pocket of, like, possible red flag. Like, just watch out for it. Because I think if you're truly interested in someone, they approach you and you're having a conversation, like, you can organically, they asked you for your number. It doesn't have to be this, like, strategy of, like, no,
Right.
I only take mine.
Right.
If you have a strategy in your head, then, like, you also have other systems in your head probably of, like, how you want relationships to go. And
I hate that, like, and this is always, like, something, like, I've tried to get this message across, and this is, like, something I'd like to talk a little bit more about, but, like, a large part of, like, my charge and my drive in general with, like, just the channel, all the dating stuff that I talk about is, like, I hate the concept of, like, a strategy or strategies in general. Mm-hmm. I sincerely seek to, like, bring, like, humanity back to dating in a sense where it's, like, the games have gotten like so perverse and crazy on both sides. Like I wrote a good article about a year ago about this. Like, I called it the Cold War in dating between males and females. And it's like each side is playing a dirtier and dirtier game in a way. The strategies, quote unquote, and the games of like, I mean, it gets ridiculous at a certain point. So a lot of what I talk about, guys, and like a lot of like my charge, like I said, is just like, let's all come back to being humans. Like, just treat that woman like in a genuine, like what I perceive to be like normal, direct sort of way, and like don't try to like over game everything you're doing. Just be a normal guy, like be a normal person. Treat like the way that I like in a twisted way. Okay, like one other thing I want to add here is like I try to treat women from the onset, like out of a situation like this, like the same way that I would treat my little sister, like the same level of politeness.
I love that.
The same tact that I would take. It's like, would I say some like perverted thing to my little sister the same day that I got her number? Would I send her a dick pic later that night? Like, are you fucking kidding me? No. Yeah. Don't do that. Like that is like what I'm trying to get at here, guys. Like, just take the, I don't know, take the, take it down a level. Like, bring some humanity back to it. This is a complete stranger you just met. Like, this is another human being with like thoughts, and you know, like women are complex, and you know, women have a lot going on, you know. But it just, I don't know if that resonates with you or makes sense.
Yeah, and I think like bottom line, like if it's supposed to, I really think experiences are like supposed to be, and it's like a lesson or something that you can take out of it. And if it's supposed to be, then like it'll happen. You can't screw it up. Yeah. If this situation is supposed to happen in your life, to either get you to be happy or teach you a lesson, then it'll be. And there's nothing you can do wrong. Just be yourself. Yeah. And listen.
Yeah. Man, I'm glad you said that word because we're kind of jumping around here, but I wanted to snap back once again to, let's go back to that cold approach for a moment, right? Like, how many guys do you think like don't know how to listen? Like when they're conversating with a woman they find very attractive, their mind is in another place, right? Their mind's in another space. They're looking maybe at her curves or at her physical features, or they're just like thinking, like I said, they're thinking down the road of even getting her number. They're thinking about the first date. They're thinking about all kinds of shit. But it's like that mindfulness and that like presence of moment to be able to conversate with a woman is something that I've found to be like kind of a challenging thing. But like if you can wrap your minds around that, if you can like hang in the conversation with her and like listen to what's coming out of her mouth, like the whole conversation flows. It becomes easy because you're just
girls spill everything.
Yeah.
They don't hold anything back usually.
and they kind of like lead the conversation. I've had this question from other guys. Like, I'm not a very good conversationalist. Like, I don't know how to talk to girls, and I'm like, okay, step number one is just like listening to the girl, because the girl will give you all the the fodder to talk about. Like, she'll give you the next topic to talk about. You just listen to like what's coming out of her mouth.
Yeah.
It's the simplest thing. It's something very hard for males to do. I've realized this. Like, I've had my days. I've had my problems with that. I've learned that the hard way. But it's just the whole like listening piece is huge. And I don't know if, like, I guess I'm asking you, like, have you felt that way around certain guys that are good listeners and are really keyed into what you're saying versus guys that are just like in outer space and like not?
I mean, I'm single, so I think that like a lot of guys that I've dated have projected like the girl that they want to fill in their lives, and are just hoping that I fit that mold. When they see me as that mold, and if I don't fit it, like at first they're like, this girl is exactly what I've been looking for. She's gonna fit in this box. Yeah. And like that's not what I want.
Yeah.
So I don't think guys are good listeners in general. I think girls are in general oversharers. Okay. So they will take on the conversation. And I think they're also, girls are right now, our generation is like, girls are still raised to be like people pleasers and kind, and so they're gonna make sure, well, not every girl, but like make sure that like the conversation flows and that they're asking questions and like they're being kind. They're being kind to you, even if they don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Okay. All right. All right. I like that. A lot of good ideas exchanged here.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to shift gears again because I was thinking about another strand of conversation.
Yeah.
I think one of the capstone pieces for like making the male complete, quote unquote, okay, for men to build themselves up, you know, a lot of times it starts like physically with their bodies, and they have their careers, they build up, and they have many elements of their lives. They build a social circle. They you know, do all sorts of things that make themselves marketable. But I believe the capstone piece is like the swagger that a guy has. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
And I just want to know, like, from your female perspective, like, what is this swagger piece like look like to you, and like how can like these guys that are listening to my channel like be better at that, or like work on that, or like what are you looking for? Like, what are your perceptive things that you're like, wow, that guy's got this like irresistible swagger, and this guy, he might be a millionaire and like he's done cool shit with his life, he's awesome, but he doesn't have that like capstone piece like I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, can you talk to that, like psychology?
Yeah. I mean, that is like my biggest like attraction.
Biggest
like
attraction, right?
100%.
You heard it,
one.
guys.
Confidence.
More than he looks, right?
Yeah.
More than the looks, the money, the everything, right?
If you're confident and you have like a cheeky personality, like that is my number one. Which is hard to find on dating apps. Like, you don't get that experience. You don't get that on the phone.
Right.
Like,
you can't detect
the only way you can get it is like physical presence.
Yeah.
Which
in a cold approach, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think everyone has a possibility of having it. If you don't have it, I think you should just not cold approach, probably.
No, I wouldn't say that. I think that everybody should be like trying this stuff.
No, you should try it. So what I think is like you should build up the confidence, like we were talking about earlier. I think like listen to a song that makes you feel like pumped up about yourself. Right. You should feel good about yourself before you're talking to a woman.
I agree with that 100%. Like, you got to build yourself up from the inside out. And like, you've got to like come to the table with like, you know, a well-composed like inner self, let's say.
Yeah.
And this is a whole other branch of conversation we could go down, because you did mention something about like, well, how exactly do you build confidence? Like, you had mentioned a few things like from your female perspective, like you had talked about like maybe some music that made you feel a different way, or before we turned the recording on, like Katie was describing like maybe wearing a certain outfit that made you like feel a certain way about yourself,
Yeah.
or like you're in your female like element, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're looking good. Like I think this is a great thing. Like that, females have this nature about them, but like it's a different psychology, and this is an interesting point where it's like for us as males and females, like the way that we derive and develop our confidence, I think is very different. And
I'm sure, yeah.
this is like for us guys, in my eyes, and this is my opinion, like you might be able to like go out and buy like an expensive suit and dress well, and you could have a flashy car, you could have all this shit, but it's like until you have that like inner confidence that comes from like getting like wins in your life is what I think comes from, like for me at least, that's the way I look at it. It's like when you have like a steady track record of like winning in life, like whatever that looks at, like that's the sort of element that really builds a man up, I think, from the inside out. Like if you're somebody that's just like losing constantly, it's just like all the money in the world like doesn't really matter. But it's like you're gonna lack that confidence piece. But there's an interesting dichotomy there. Like the male and female side, I think, is a little bit different. But like going back to like what Katie was saying, this is like I want to talk a little bit more about this because, like I said, it's like when you harness that energy, guys, like when you have that sort of, when you have the confidence from all those wins I talked about, when you know deep down that like you're the shit and like nobody can tell you otherwise, it doesn't matter what the frick has happened all around. Like what you are, what you got, what you're worth.
Yeah.
That is a cool place to be at. That's a cool energy to carry into the world. And like that right there is a thing that I believe captivates like most women's like true attention in a different way. And that's like, I'm just trying to connect this to like when somebody says they've got swagger, and like when females like talk on these terms, they're like, I like this guy because he has this like mad swagger. And it's like, it's just an interesting psychological thing that's going on there because it's different for women, like the things that attract you and like retain your attention, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think like, so I'm thinking about the last time that I met someone at a bar.
Yeah.
He was like so interested in talking to me and alone. Like just like, I want to know about this girl. There was a point where he did give me like $100 bill to go buy drinks.
That's right.
So I think that is a common
Did you
thing.
Take that? Was that
I didn't like
a
it.
flashy thing?
I did not like it.
It's like, hey, look at me. I've got $100 bill
Number
in my front
one,
pocket. Like,
if he went up to the bar to order me and my friends without giving me this $100 bill, would have been 100 times more
you would have liked
attractive.
that better.
Yeah, he was taking one. He's taller, so he's gonna get more. He's gonna get a drink
Like
faster.
The bar tender's attention.
And if he just went up to my friends and was like, "What would you like to drink?" and ordered their drink versus me having to go up, like that, I didn't like. What I liked was like he was solely focused on me, talking to me, and wanting to know, more about me. That was attractive. So he seemed very confident in that place. The money thing, I mean, it was a fun night, so like whatever. But I don't really like that. I don't like flashy. That's not confidence to me. Confidence is like, there's this girl that I really want to talk to, and I'm going to make sure she knows like she's the most important thing in this room right now. Like that's confidence. Listening and then engaging in conversation.
Interesting. Wait, so you're saying that like you think a guy exudes confidence if he focuses his attention on like exclusively
one
you.
Thing.
Okay. That's an interesting
because
thing.
I think he's like saying like, you're meaningful to me right now, and I'm listening, and we're having fun. So you seem confident having conversation with me, I guess.
Okay, all right.
I could also like look at a guy across the room and be like, oh, that guy is super confident, but sometimes it's a turn off too,
It's a fine line,
yeah.
right? It's a fine line that a man's gotta walk, right?
And you're confident, then that's great. And I'm the only person that you're concerned about. But if you're across the bar and you're confident talking to every woman, then it's
a turn off for you.
Yeah.
Interesting.
and you're flashing your money and like your whatever, like
Yeah. It's such a funny thing. Like it is a fine line. It's like, I mean, and this is like, I think like every man everywhere for the entire duration of like the human history is like the line between confidence and cockiness is like a fine one. And it's interesting, the guys that learn to walk it well and correctly and right, like I don't feel like I'm like that at all.
no, you're not.
No, I don't feel like I walk the line well. I feel like there's times I'm like trying to be like.
I've never seen you be cocky.
Interesting. Okay, that's good. I appreciate that. That's flattering that you feel like that. I've had my moments. I feel like where I've, trying too hard maybe or something like that. Maybe I come off as cocky, but anyways, it's an elusive piece. It is an important piece, but it's like that's one of those like mastery level men things I think in this world is like learning to be that sort of guy and that sort of person. And I don't know. It just, like I said, I don't think I have it perfected yet, and it's still something I seek to understand. But I love to have like the female side of the perspective to just like know like, well, what are you thinking like in this sort of instance, like what we're talking about here. So it's cool. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you could think that like, okay, so my audience, like I have like my analytics and I can tell like I'm reaching mostly males, of course, right now, obviously, but I seem to capture like a demographic of like guys that are like honestly between like 20 and 40. So like, probably most of them are like right in the middle of that range. So like, your late 20s, early 30s guys. I don't know. I'm just like, do you have anything that you would want to tell like just the general male populace right now, like to be better, I guess like, not just like better people in general, but just be like better partners and better like daters and better like men, like
I think
men in general. Like what have we lost? Like what's lacking?
Here's the thing. I think if there's any guys that are listening that like don't feel comfortable talking to women, I think the best thing you can do is to find friends that are women, and so you feel more confident. And then join interest, like do things that you're interested in that like girls might do also.
Yeah.
And it just forms like a natural way to like connect with people versus like going to the grocery store and having to contact them or whatever. It's like for people who are like, that might seem very scary too. I think having like a friendship with a woman is like a very it's like a great thing. Like I value my friendships with guys in my life
for sure.
And then if you also feel very confident going up to girls but you're not finding success, like I would challenge you to like go to other venues, go to the bar, go to the coffee shop, go to like different things, network. What I'm trying to think of next year, because clearly like I don't spend a lot of time on dating. It's like dating, if you're really looking for a partner, is a full-time job.
Yeah,
and I've definitely not been putting in time in that way and like expanding my brain to think about like different ways to meet people.
Yeah.
I don't think like it's gonna land in your lap. I think you have to
work on it a little bit, right?
And you have to be mentally ready, that too. So
right. I think this is something that I've identified. Like both males and females struggle tremendously psychologically and like emotionally. Everybody has a past. Everybody's got things that have hurt them, things that have shaped them, things that have like done all these things, and it's like that's a huge piece as we all go through life. And just like learning to process and handle those things. And like, I think a lot of times, ironically enough, like, and I can speak for myself, like for sure, it becomes a deterrent for like years in your life sometimes to like getting out and connecting with other people and this kind of stuff. So it's like, that's a big deal, people kind of putting the past behind them kind of thing. And I get that. I mean, I've had my share of days. But
we all have, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It just strikes me.
It's just, you got one life that we know of to live. And, like, if you really want it, like, not, the fairy tales aren't right. It's not going to just land in your lap. You have to go, you have to, one, be ready. And if you're not ready, like, seek help to figure that out. And then you have to, like, work for it. Try different things. Do something new. You might be so uncomfortable that, like, challenges. If you're afraid of something, that means, like, you should do it.
Yeah.
That's like your body telling you, like,
Yeah.
you should do it. Not in every way, but.
Yeah. I like that. I love that mentality where it's like you have to challenge yourself to better yourself. You have to push your boundaries and get outside of your little box, like, to some extent. Throughout your whole life, I feel like you always have to be kind of, expanding the box a little bit.
Yeah.
Pushing.
And, like,
to develop.
lean on your women friends. Ask them, like, what do you think about, this?
Yeah.
And they'll, expand your brain a little bit more.
Here's a question for you. What do you think the average male, like the average single male out there these days, lacks?
Commitment.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's a very different time of dating right now.
Absolutely.
And I'm just speaking of, like, guys that I've dated and whatever. I think that, like, and I've had a lot of honest conversations with guys. I don't know if these are the guys that are listening to your podcast, but I think a lot of guys are like, we were raised to, like, we find a woman, we marry them, and we have children, and then you essentially, like, live your best life.
Yeah.
But I also know that, like, a lot of guys struggle with that idea.
Yeah.
A lot of people you meet, their parents aren't
Yeah.
married
Divorced,
still. They're divorced or
type
other
situation.
things, and they haven't, like, really, like, gone through the process to, like, understand all of that, and so they're just taking it to their next relationship. So I think it's a very weird time in our lives of, like, what do you want? And you don't have to be married. You don't have to be married. You don't have to have kids. You should do what you want to do.
Sure. Yeah.
So if you just want to, like, have relationships with people, have a long-term relationship with someone, you want to get married, you want to have kids, like, do what you want to do. And if you're not sure, that's okay, but you can't be wasting people's time.
Yeah.
You
So
gotta make
honesty,
sure you're
maybe. Yeah.
100% emotionally healthy before you can have a relationship that's healthy.
I condone that sort of like no, just that like don't jerk people around. Like if that's your MO, like it's okay. This is what you're saying. I think like you're saying that it's okay to want those sorts of different styles of relationship. Like if you are desirous of that, like just be honest about it and just be like upfront and just
like
just shoot
every
people straight,
guy that I've not been in a space to date, but I've gone out with, I am 100% transparent with them, and I'm like, because I like them and I value them as a person, and I'm like, this is what I'm going through. I wanted to push myself to go out with you, and I was hoping, but now, and I right away will say this, like, transparent, I don't know if I can, like, get there because I'm dealing with this, and I want to do that before they develop feelings, because it's not right. And I think that the people have to put themselves out there.
Yeah.
But if you're not ready, you don't need to take other people down with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, like don't drag somebody else through, like, unnecessarily through the mud just because you got to feed your own needs, because you got to, like, serve yourself kind of thing. It's like, I don't like that. Let's see here. What other questions do I have for you? Do you have any questions for me?
God, what I would, like, give as advice, I am really big into this idea of, like, the guys that I think listen to your podcast, I would challenge them to have very open conversations with, like, women in their lives. I think you find out so much info.
What do you mean? Just like be forward of their intentions, like from the jump, or you
Just
mean
like getting to know, like if they're not comfortable with talking to women
Hmm.
anywhere, like just getting to know women and getting like feeling confident.
So you've hit on this a couple times, like just the plain simple ability to like chat with a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's easy for us guys like chat with your homeboys and chat with your buddies like over
Yeah, I
here or
don't
whatever.
think a lot of guys have like friendships are not like number one priority. Friendships with females are not a number one priority for a lot of guys.
This is a great topic or talking point, and it's relevant. And I've registered that like certainly there's different things that I will talk with my guy friends about, and a lot of times it's like it's just dumb shit. We're just joking around. We're just like doing whatever. But like my small observation in my life, the women that I've really connected with, like both friends and relationship types, like it it gets to a more like intellectual point, and I've found like the really stimulating conversations I've had with women, and the women that I've been able to like keep as friends, or even the ones that I've had in relationships that I had a more tighter positive bond with. It was like we were able to talk about different deeper things specifically, and I don't know if that's like what you're getting at, but I'm just saying like my observation in general, and like learning to like have like a deep conversation with somebody like about what they think about life, what they think about their values, what they think about human nature, psychology, like these sorts of things like seem to be like, just in my opinion, like what women were more interested to talk about. So for you as guys, if you take an interest in those things, or you're sincerely like you want to know, I don't know, just more about the way somebody thinks, it's like that's like I can't talk like sports with a woman like that long, or like most women, like I can't talk about like my job or my outside interests, but it's like the thing that I can talk for like hours with women about. And then here we are, right? We're an hour and 6 minutes just talking about like relationships, psychology, like dating, like male female nature, like all this kind of stuff. It's like I don't know, for whatever that's worth, guys, like that may or may not be relevant or interesting to you guys, but like I think there's a lot of girls that want to talk about those sorts of things. So if you're able to kind of like go a few layers deeper than like, hey, like this is like cliche, like what's the weather like today, or did you see that movie yesterday, or what's your favorite song, or what's your favorite ice cream? It's like, no, like I want to know what you think about life. I want to know what you think about your existence on this earth. I want to know what you like, who you are as a core person. Like I want like those are the things that.
But those are also like special people too.
Yeah, true.
It goes beyond like women and men.
True. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I think though that like I have always had a lot of guy friends. I had brothers, like I've had a lot of guy friends.
Yeah.
I love having guy friends. Like I love having a different experience. Like I definitely believe in like the biology of like a woman and a man, and like the way your brain works. Even though there's so many like different styles in both, and whatever you identify as or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think like as for me, like the relationships that I've been able to keep with guy friends who like can like value our friendship, like have been so valuable in my life. And I think that like if you're a guy that maybe is afraid to like talk to girls or whatever, the more that you can be around women, and the more that you can understand the way they think, not that everyone is the same, the more comfortable you're going to be with finding a woman, And so, and having, girls will have those honest conversations with you. They're going to, if you're like, I really like this girl, but I don't know what to, she's going to give you all the advice in it, whether you take it or not, but it's like, it's a good way to just like get more comfortable
develop yourself
women
as somebody who's able to communicate with women.
Yeah. And also the guys that I've dated in my past that like haven't had women friends, that's like a flag to me. Yeah. Because I'm just like,
you have a hard time maybe interacting with these folks.
Yeah, or they've had friends that they couldn't keep because girls and that they've dated, or maybe they've slept with one of their friends, and it's I really like dating guys who have like strong female friendships. I think that's a huge turn on to me.
Interesting.
It makes you seem like a very like developed person, like a
You're a little more
grounded.
evolved, maybe.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know if that's what I'm just
Yeah.
asking if that's what you're saying.
And there's things you can go off, like some girls might have issues with it, or like maybe there was a time where they dated, or I don't know, whatever. But they value like this woman in their life as a true friend, and like that is to me as like a secure woman, like a turn on. Like I'm like, oh cool, this girl values you in her life. Like that's big. That means you're a high value guy that like adds to her life.
Some other woman deems you like worthy or valuable enough to like want to be your friend.
She wants to spend her time with you as a friend. That's big.
Yeah, I can see what you mean there, and I certainly respect that perspective. And
But I think it's just good, like if a guy is just listening and he's like uncomfortable around women, like just get some friends or meet some women. Maybe they'll end up friends and not like a significant other, and get more comfortable around
the opposite sex.
Yeah.
It's a relevant point. It's very absolutely. Let's see here. That was a good strand of conversation.
So many combos.
What else? That's why I love like this sort of style of communication where like it just kind of one thing branches to the next, to the next, to the next kind of thing.
Well, it's just interesting, like how much you learn from other people.
Yeah. Oh
if
yeah.
you just listen and have conversations.
That's like something for me, like just in general in my life, that like I've always understood that like every single person you cross paths with like has like something to share or something to enrich you with, right?
Yeah.
They might be a shitty person, but they still have something to like make you better, right? And it could be like, you learn a lesson in a rough way or something, but you're still, everybody's got something to give you kind of thing. And that's a lot of my life been my fascination in general. It's just like everybody that I've met that I'm always like thinking on those terms, like what can I learn from them? Like what do they know that I don't know? Or like I don't know everything.
You're like the king of that. Like you were always like, whoever you meet, you have to ask them like 50 questions.
Yeah.
And they're like, what is this guy? But it's so good
funny.
because one, people love talking about themselves.
Yes.
And also, you are just like a consumer of knowledge.
Yeah.
And you only store like the part that you really like hearing, and you're like, oh, I'll store that for later. But that's such a cool trait. Because most people don't ask questions. Most people don't listen.
Yeah.
If they say, like, how was your day? How was your day? They don't say good, and then you're like, oh, okay, whatever. But if someone gives you more, they might not listen either. Like, people aren't good listeners.
This is a very relevant point. I've talked about this a lot, and I talked to you last week or 2 weeks ago or whatever. Like, and I think I mentioned this to you. Like, I had met another woman in a bar. I was just having dinner. I was out on a work training thing for you guys listening out there, and like, I was conversating with this woman, and it was just small talk. It was just like, it wasn't anything like, there was no chemistry or nothing. It was just like, hey, we're having a talk because we're both strangers in a strange town. We're just having dinner next to one another. But she stopped me like an hour or two into our like conversating, and she's like, like, you're really good at like talking to people. And I'm like, really? Like, what do you mean? And she's like,
That's the question.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. She's like, most people I like would sit down at a bar like this, like they'll just start like droning on about themselves. But she's like, every time I ask you a little bit about you and your life, like you'll talk for like 30 seconds or 60 seconds or 90. But then she's like, every time you turn it back to me, you turn the conversation back to me, like, hey, like, yeah, this is my stuff. But I mean, like, tell me about this, tell me about that. And it was like, the fact that she registered that and verbalized that, I thought was like very, I appreciated it. It was flattering, but it was like something that um, I think is so fascinating. Like to make another person feel like valued and make them feel like important in your presence is like such a big part about being, I think, like an effective, valuable, like charismatic, like influential, positive person in this world. And it's something that most people probably have a little bit of learning to do.
Yeah.
And like I'm flattered that you're like you've said basically just that same thing, but just the fact that other people around me like have pointed these things out. And it's like, and this is another piece. Like I've talked about this before on my channel, where I've mentioned like just ways to become a more effective like person in this world, or more I don't know. I think we talked about this in the past. There was a book that I read when I was really young. It was called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Have you read the book?
No, but we've talked about it.
We talked about it. I did talk about it. I think I've mentioned it a few times now. I think I wrote an article or two about it. But it's just like the whole point of the book was so relevant. But he was just talking about like everybody's like major fascination in their lives is themselves. Everybody loves to talk about themselves. And it's like if you can be somebody that gets somebody to talk about themselves, and that's like basically what I just described, like turning the conversation like back on the other person. Like they love that. They appreciate that. They respect you more for that. Like they look at you in a different way. And when it comes time for you to like get them on board, or to get them to like trust you, or to get them to like whatever, they're more apt to do that, I feel like. And
especially women.
Yeah.
I think women like to talk about themselves.
Yeah. Well, and I think, okay, and I love that you brought that up, because I think for all of us guys, like for you guys listening out there, like you need to learn to make your woman feel good in your presence. And part of the way that you make that happen, I feel like, is like you need to make her feel valued and special and wanted and like appreciated and all these sorts of things. And the way you do that is not being some self-centered prick. The way you do that is like taking an interest in like their life, and like, you know, and I'm not saying like, don't get this twisted. I'm not saying like pedestalize women and worship women, because that turns them off. Like that's a whole different, like, that's a whole different realm of psychology. But like, and this is just people in general, like not just women, but I mean, to make people feel appreciated and like I said, special and valued is like, it's more simple, I think, than most people understand. But that's just been my tack, and it's like I said, it's cool that you have like pulled that out and identified that. I appreciate you saying that.
It's like communication, but people always say like communication is like the number one issue, whatever. But I don't know about that. Like maybe, but listening, and you can listen on various like levels. You can have a conversation and listen.
Yeah.
Or you can listen by like watching.
Sure.
If people are just like absorbed other people,
yeah,
then they would learn way more about the person. Like we were talking about body language. Like if you're approaching a girl, like that's a part of listening too, right? Sure. It's like watching her body language. Is she like face towards you? Is she like interested in talking to you? Yeah. Does she seem shy? That's okay. You know, right. Give her a little bit of time to like understand that you're, you know, approaching her in the wild, and that's like scary. Yeah. But
I love the wild. I love that term too.
Wild. Yeah.
It's so like it's an ominous term in a funny way in my opinion, because I'm like, the wild. Like on one hand, you could like imagine some like jungle that's filled with wild animals, but like the wild, as we're all concerned, it's like
it used to be the thing.
Yeah, it's like the everyday world that we all interact in. It's like it's weird that it's come to that point. But you're right, it is the wild.
And if you meet someone in the wild, it's 10 times more meaningful.
Oh my
and
God.
You're going to think of them 10 times better than on online dating. Like if I meet a guy, I have only dated guys long term that I've met in the wild. I have never dated a guy long term on online dating. If I meet you online, you have to be a 10, because it's a magazine.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking for like real hot guys. If I meet you in the wild, you don't have to be the hottest guy ever.
Right.
You have to be talking to me, listening, confident, and then it doesn't matter. I don't care. You know, you're automatically like 10 times hotter than.
You're validating another point that I've like talked about a few times before on the channel, where it's like when you're in that online space, like you're almost like another freaking number
magazine.
in a sea of options, right, for the women.
Yeah.
Because we all know, like, let's be honest here, like we all know women have like the advantage in that realm, but like when you come up in the real world, like you set yourself apart insanely, instantaneously.
Yeah.
In a real powerful way. That it's so different. And it's like, I've been a proponent of this for a long time, and I've like preached this to you guys like over and over again. Dude, get offline, man. Go into the wild. Go into the real world. Because like, your chances are way better.
Why not?
You can do both, sure. I'm not going to knock anybody.
But like, just go out. You know what? Bottom line, if you meet someone online, that's cool. But go out there and talk to people too. Because even if you meet someone online and they're fantastic, that's great. Like, we had friends that got engaged today and they met online. Yeah. That's wonderful. But if you're out there, like, you have one life to live. Like, do something different. Yeah. Go have fun. Have a weird conversation. Yeah. Talk to the worst girl ever.
Have an awkward conversation.
And be like, that girl sucked. And then go home and be like, man, I hope she meets someone great that changes her, but that girl sucked. And just go home and like, that's on her and it had nothing to do with you. Just have experiences because you live one life. Why not?
I agree. I like that mentality, and you're absolutely right. It's like, hey, you know, what do you want to do while you're here?
It's the worst thing that's going to happen. They're going to be like, you're a creep. Well, go home.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is like so many guys talk themselves out of cold approach because like they imagine the eventuality, like the quote unquote worst case scenario as being something way worse than it is. But it's like, you're right. Like, what's the worst that happened? You have this awkward moment. People around you see him again. Yeah, but people around you might see some weird exchange, but like you walk away and like 5 minutes later, if that, like you're absent of that place in space and time, and you're never going to see that person again. So it's like, what do you got to lose?
Yeah,
that's the mentality. I mean, that's like, no, and this is the thing that flabbergasts me about us as guys. That is absolutely the fact. It's undeniable. That's reality. But all of us guys are like when we start, let's say, you're like scared to walk up and talk to girls. You're terrified of it. 100%.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's the weirdest freaking thing in the world. Well, it's like guys go out and like they would more readily like go cliff diving tomorrow or like do some
swim with sharks.
Dumb shit in their car. Yeah. Go speed and almost die. But they're like, oh my God, I can't talk to this girl. She's way too hot. She's like, it's weird. It's very bizarre. I don't know how to rationalize that.
This might not appeal to your audience. It might be more girls. Actually, like, it's a good question for guys.
Yeah, I think,
I've always been the girl who, like, silly goes and talks to guys. I talk to guys all the time. I'll just go up and talk to a guy.
Okay.
If he's really hot, I might second guess it, but I will go up and talk to a guy. No matter what.
Yeah.
But I've been told by my brother and a couple other people that, like, guys don't like it when a girl approaches them because it seems like you're too, like, forward. Yeah. And it's, like, the guy's job to do the work.
Interesting.
And I will talk to a guy not because I want his number. It's no strategy. It's just, like, I just want to talk to someone because I'm, like, an extrovert.
Sure.
And we're talking about, like, bar situations, not, like...
Yeah.
Target. I'm not gonna. I will never talk to a guy in Target.
Yeah.
I mean, I should based on this conversation.
No. You should. I mean, no.
But yeah, I don't know. My brother's like, you should stop doing that, guy. Like, that's not a good thing. And you know, I am a feminist, a woman, and I'm like, I feel like that's shitty. I want to talk to guys too. Like,
you want to jump in the mix,
why not? I want to talk to them, and then they can be like, "Whoa, this girl's cool."
Yeah.
And then it'll be like on their.
I think it's like, to be honest with you, like from my guy perspective, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And like I think in the same way that like the same odds that a guy has walking up to that random girl, like she's either gonna like him or she's not. I think it's the same for women. If a woman was to approach me, like if I was like super, like intrigued by her, like I wouldn't give a shit that she like. I'd be flattered, to be honest, that she like came up and talked to me. But if you weren't into her, you weren't into her. It's like girls go through the same thing too. It's like the guy can like do his thing and show his balls and whatever, but like she might not. She, hey, 50-50 thing. So like I don't know. I wouldn't be deterred from if that's your prerogative and you.
I enjoy it. Like I just like sparking up conversations, and it's usually
you are that
not a
extrovert.
person that like I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So it's a different idea, but there might be like a good looking guy that I talk to, and I'm like, well, if he likes me, like that's fine.
Yeah.
But I have heard guys be like, no, don't do that. Like we want to approach you, and I don't really like that.
Yeah, I would not make a blanket statement like that. I'd be like, hey, you're just as human as the rest of us, and like, I mean, hey, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Save some work for a guy.
Yeah. And like I said, it's like it's either there or it's not.
Yeah.
That's the thing too that everybody gets like so wrapped up in their heads about, like, oh, I did this wrong, I said that wrong, I looked this way, whatever. It's like, no, like unload yourself of the pressure, like unload all that stuff out of your mind. It's like it's either there or it's not. It's like
right, you can't mess it up. You can't
control that. Here's the funny thing about cold approach, right? Like you could, and I've had this experience. You could be the most bumbling fucking idiot in the world, but if the girl just is like feeling you for like God knows what reason, like, you could say the stupidest shit. Like you could totally embarrass yourself, and it could still pan out. And that is strictly a product of she likes what she sees, she likes the energy, she likes whatever she likes.
Yeah, and
that goes well. On the flip side, like you could be freaking Casanova and do everything quote unquote right. You got the best clothes on. You look good. You're whatever.
She hates
and she's like, nope, not interested. So it's like,
I mean, guys, you've seen that in my situation a lot.
Yeah. Well, hey, yeah. It's just that's human nature, and it's like it's something that everybody gets inside their heads. I think about too much, males and females, and it's like, and that's the thing a lot of times too, where it's like, I think we all have a way of doing this to ourselves, where it's like. Situations don't work out. Situations evaporate. Situations go sideways. Situations go shitty. But it's like a lot of the times, like you beat yourself up unnecessarily, and it's like it just, it's not always you. It's not something you did. It's not the way you looked always. It's not the way you said something. It's not whatever. It's like it doesn't. It's not always strictly that. There's other factors going on. It's just human nature. It's just human interaction. It's just the way we are as beings, and that's a plain and simple fact. So I always try to remember that too, where I'm like, I'll have like I've had plenty of instances in my life where I'm like things didn't work out, and I'm like, and this is one of the things I've tried to coach guys on is I'm like, hey, flip your mindset, like start thinking on the terms that it was like more their problem than it was yours. Like if you're a good person of high moral fiber and you're a man of integrity and you're doing your best job you can, living your best life. It's like that's all you can do. And a lot of times people are in different psychological, emotional, mental places, and they got shit going on in their lives, and it's like you did nothing wrong. You did absolutely nothing wrong. It's just, hey, maybe bad timing or just whatever, but it's not you. Like stop. Everybody, males and females, need to like break out of that mindset where it's like you beat yourself up, like, oh, I did this, I did that. It's like no. A lot of times it's not that at all. It's more a subject of the circumstances that derive like the eventuality of the situation. I think. I don't know if that's like.
No, 100%. I agree with that. Yeah.
Kind of tangent on there, but I don't know. It's relevant. It's we're all good at beating ourselves up, aren't we?
We really are, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well. What, anything else you could think to talk about here? I have one question at the very end when you're all done.
Tell me.
Are you done?
Yeah, I don't think
asking questions? Or
yeah.
We're at about an hour and a half right now, so we're probably tired of breath here.
Yeah.
Um, the last thing I want to ask you about is
Mm-hmm.
pretty deep.
Okay.
Are you okay with answering deep questions?
Yes.
At the bottom of like everything that I talk about on my channel, like everything boils down to integrity.
Hmm.
Our lives are all about integrity, like learning to live your life with integrity, exercising the highest level of integrity you can in your existence. What does integrity mean to you?
Um, I think like I used to feel that that meant like being a good human and doing everything you could to just like make your little world a better place
Mm-hmm.
and hoping that others would as well. But I'm kind of jaded now.
Yeah.
And so now I just think it's like one, like being the best self that you can be
Yeah.
and always working on yourself and encouraging your loved ones to do the same, but also like looking out for yourself too.
Yeah.
I think there's a layer of protection.
Like self-love in the nth degree is what are you, or is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
because you can be the best person ever and like a very like intentional, meaningful individual, always trying to better yourself, and you're gonna get, screwed over because someone else is not.
That's the challenge of life, though. And
It is,
I've
yeah.
thought a lot about this, where it's like integrity is hard because we live in a world where you look around you constantly. You look left, right, up, and down, all around you at every waking second of your lives on this earth. Everybody all around you is taking the low path. They're not walking the path of integrity.
Yeah.
It's tempting to follow suit, right?
Yeah, because it seems easy.
Yeah.
But
It seems like they're winning too. It seems like they're exceeding you.
It does.
It seems like they're getting ahead.
100%. That's what I feel
It's the
right
mind
now
fuck
with
of it all.
something. But the thing is that, like, so if you just concentrate on being a great person and the best you can be and being your truest self and working on yourself, you become resentful of other people who aren't doing the same.
Yeah.
So that's a very ugly feeling.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I say that you have to, one, be your best self, always encourage your loved ones to be your best self, but then always look out for yourself and just know that like most people aren't going to do that for themselves, and you need to protect yourself because otherwise you experience the resentful feelings, and like that's like not good.
What about like rising above the resentful thoughts and feelings?
I haven't really experienced that. I'm kind of just like, I was raised like a people pleaser, and so I think resentment is kind of like a very ugly, common, like I avoid the fear in life, or not the fear, the anger in life.
Yeah.
And I immediately go to sadness. And the fear is a very productive feeling. Not the fear, the anger. The anger is what is a very productive feeling.
Yeah.
And so I think, you can be the best person and wish well on other people, but I think you have to protect yourself too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think self-love is a huge thing. I think it's a learned thing. I think it's a big challenge. And I think I identify with what you're describing because like a lot of my life I've like sacrificed like pieces of myself to like try to make others happy, and it's been very destructive and damaging like internally, let's say. And like yes, that is a learning curve in life to like figure out like hey, like this has gone on too far, and it's like I'm not practicing self-love here by allowing this thing to happen, or like going along with this, or like whatever that looks like in your life. I mean, that's a difficult thing to address. So I get that, but like that's like I do believe that's a big piece of it. Like part of leading a life of integrity is like, yeah, it's taking care of yourself too. Like
watching your back.
Yeah, and I know that might sound like selfish to some people, but I do think there's an element that it's like, hey, love yourself. Like take care of your inner being. Like
My favorite quote is my therapist told me this years ago.
Yeah.
You can't set yourself on fire to make another person warm.
Yeah.
And the same concept as like an airplane.
Yeah.
You have to put an oxygen mask on your child before you put it on you.
Sure.
But you can't do anything in this world unless you're 100% whole.
Yeah.
So you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of other people.
Yeah.
So when you get married, when you have kids, whatever, you are always your number one priority.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Right.
And like it has to be that way. And that is self-love is loving other people. Because you have to love yourself first, no matter what.
I do think they're intertwined, and I think we all have our moments where you sacrifice a large piece of yourself for the betterment of somebody else. But I think you're spot on. Where it's like you aren't possibly equipped to like assist anybody else until you're solid on the inside, kind of thing. That's the way I look at it. But yeah, it's hard. This is like one of the hardest things I think we all. I don't know. This is part of the reason we come down here to the earth. I think it's a little existential.
That's
much deeper thought track,
I think like my number one concern of like being a mom someday is like losing yourself for another human.
Sure.
I think that it's a huge like maybe not a lot of women think about that as like a concern, but
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, good.
I went off. Yeah.
What's that?
I said I went off in a little.
No, it's good. It's a good exchange of ideas. I like it. All right, Katie. Well, anything else you'd like to talk about?
No.
Okay. This was an hour and a half worth of some interesting talk. Guys, thanks for tuning in. If there's anybody that's still around for the end of this recording, I'm impressed by you. But yeah, if you guys have some, if you have, I guess, reflections or things like you would like to talk about, or maybe things that you could think to ask Katie, maybe we can get her back in here, and like she's a good resource to get some insight into the female psychology and the female side of things. And it's always neat to have those sorts of perspectives. So
yeah, ask your question.
Yeah, post them down in the comments there, guys. So anyways, thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. We'll talk to you all soon.